just to check my, yeah. Hello everyone, welcome back. I hope you all had an amazing lunch. Let me introduce myself. My name is Milica and I will be your MC for the rest of the day. We have an incredible lineup of speakers coming. 5 more talks and 1 amazing panel discussion to end the day. Before we start, let's just give a lot of applause for our sponsors as well that make everything happen today. Okay, let's kick things off. Our first speaker this afternoon is someone who lives and breathes Vue. She is a senior front-end developer, a freelancer, and co-organizer of Vue.js Paris meetup. So she is truly part of this community. Her talk today is about something that is on everyone's mind right now, MCP service. Angular has one, Svelte has one, so what about Vue? She's here to show us how to build one. Please give a warm welcome to Elise Patrikainen.
Hello, hello. Thank you very much for this nice, wonderful introduction. And yeah, so as it was mentioned, I will speak about MCPs today. But first, I would like to speak about physiology. Yeah, why not? Actually, there is a specific reason for that. It is that I'm not teaching you anything. Right now, it's 2 p.m., which means we are right after lunch, and we are starting to be in these phases of the day where we are all like, oh, starting the digestion process, right? So when I've seen the schedule, when I saw that my talk was planned for that moment in the day, I was a bit anxious, and so I started doing some research. I Googled it. Yeah, I still use Google. And actually that was not really positive because I learned this new word, postprandial dip, or food coma. I was like, oh my God, what I'm going to do? And especially like it's supposed to start between 60 to 90 minutes after lunch. So if you had lunch around 1 p.m., we are dangerously arriving in this zone. So I thought, what can we do? What can I do against that? Maybe I should propose to do some physical activity. Like some people do that. This is Ken Dot. You probably know him if you know a bit about React ecosystem. And yeah, he likes starting talks with a session of air squats. I thought, oh, that's a brilliant idea, but wait, I'm not Ken Dot. I will never convince a single person here to do that, for sure. So I will just keep it easy and more simple. I will try to highlight as much as possible the key takeaways of my talk. So in case you would feel a bit like less attentive or maybe sleepy, at least you can have these ideas out of the talk, hopefully. So this being said, I will just say a few words about me. So my name is Elise. I am from France, from Paris. You probably can guess it from the emojis and from the accent. I am a front-end architect at a company called We Saved. It belongs to the Amundi Group. And I am also an occasional speaker. I had the chance to speak here 2 years ago in Amsterdam. I've done also a couple of other conferences. And I am, as it was mentioned, thank you again, a Vue.js Paris co-organizer. And by the way, if you feel like sharing anything with the Parisian Vue community, feel free to find me, to talk with me. Even if you are not living in Paris, we can have some guests sometimes. So we may be able to arrange some things. Okay, so now I would like to tell you about how my interest for MCPs began. And it began in London, September 12, 2025. Well, it was 6 months ago. And it began there, at a conference, an Angular conference called Angular Connect, which, if you are into Angular ecosystem, I really recommend. That's a great one. And this was the opening talk with the Angular core team. And they were explaining, they were giving lots of great ideas. I can give you the reference of the conference later, of the talk. And among these ideas, there was the question of how to make agents more autonomous in the way they build build, in the way they developed software, how to replicate the development flow that we as a developer have for agents. And they were basing this idea, this research, this reflection on MCPs. So that's the reason why. But wait, I want MCPs dead. Why am I asking? Because I was at the community event yesterday, which was great, and we had a panel brilliantly animated by Alex, and yeah, actually, I had like a few kind of remarks about MCP, like, yeah, it was MCP before, but now it's more about skills, or MCP used to be a thing, or who is still using MCP? No, I'm kidding. I did not have that one, but that was just to emphasize it. But yeah, so I know that there used to be like lots of vibe around MCPs. No, it's less the case, but I am convinced it's still a thing, and I will try to convince you as well. So the agenda is, the talk is really simple. It's divided in 2 parts. The first part is more generic about MCPs and especially how to build them. So if you are like a bit tired, I would recommend to focus on that one maybe. And the second one, because that's the most generic one, the second one is focused on building an MCP server for Vue. So let's start. I start with a brief introduction on MCPs because I really want everyone to be on the same page. And also I noticed that there was a bit of confusion around the notion of MCP, so I think it's good to redefine things. So first of all, LLMs cannot do everything. For sure, like they cannot search in a DB, they cannot read files, they cannot launch a browser, etc., etc. So the solution is to let them call a server, right, who will be able to do these kind of things. But this triggers questions, like lots of questions, and especially 2. The first one is, how do we connect? How do we connect to LLM with a server, right? And the second one is, how do we let them communicate efficiently? Especially, how do we let LLM know which input it has to pass to a server, for example. So, of course, this led to custom implementation, so everyone did his own thing, which has lots of drawbacks, and especially the one that we can end up with something like this, with like lots of different implementation everywhere. Therefore, MCP was created by Anthropic in 2024 with the idea of standardizing everything. Standardizing this process of connecting LLMs with servers. And Anthropic provides several things. That's really interesting. So first, it provides a protocol. So the protocol in itself, like the specification. Then it provides a SDK, and also development tools and references implementations. So let's focus first on the protocol. The protocol provides several things. Like that's quite complete, I would say. But one thing I want to focus on is the architecture that it provides, that it specifies. Sorry. So in this architecture, there are 3 things that we need to know, 3 entities, I would say. The first one is the client. So the client is the piece of code which will be interacting with the host and the LLM and with the rest of the process. Then, at the other part of the chain, there is the server, right? Which exposes tools that the LLM will call. And in between, to make the connection, we have the transport, which can be local or remote. We will come back on these notions. So let's have a schema that will be probably clearer. At first, we have here the host. So the host is really the user-facing application. That's Cursor, that's VS Code, that's whatever application that which is used by us, actually. So this is what we call the host. Inside the host, we have LLM, and then we have, as I mentioned, this piece of this entity, which is called the client, which will communicate between, which will assure the communication between the LLM and the rest of the process. Then afterwards, we have the server, right, which does his own thing, like, for example, interacting with the file system, and which exposes tools such as reading, writing, whatever. And in between, we have this entity, the transport. We can wonder, why do we have a transport in between? I mean, we could maybe directly connect the client and the MCP server. Well, that's because there are different ways of connecting MCP client and servers. I mean, different. Actually, there are two different. We can either connect them locally or remotely. And that's the transport which will ensure the fact that that both of them are connected and do this, the translation to the MCP server. So yeah, the transport is responsible for that. So we can connect it locally with std in, std out process, for example, or we can connect it remotely with streamable HTTP. So I hope it is clear. And yeah, so that was all for the architecture. The idea, I mean, when you build MCP, you don't really need to have deep knowledge of it, but that's good to have an idea of the architecture to understand then on the code part what is happening. Okay, so all good, I hope. Are you fine? Okay, cool. Let's move to the SDK. And if you want to listen just only one part of the talk, I would recommend to listen that one, because I will show you concretely how it looks like on the coding part. And you will see it's surprisingly easy. So the SDK is really convenient. It's available in several languages, including TypeScript, and it literally abstracts the whole protocol logic. So let's have a look on how it works. And we will build here an MCP server just right away. So first, we will declare the server. So for that, we are using the SDK. Sorry, I just stop it, it might be a bit fast. We are using the SDK for that. So as you can see, we cannot see it very well, but we just declare a new instance of MCP server. We configured it with the name, with the version, and that's all. Like here, we have a server which is functional and which might be connected to the rest of the process. So let's do that now. Let's connect it to the rest of the process. And you will see that's also very easy. We will instantiate a new transport. So here, we keep things simple. Like we will use this this server in Cursor. So we are doing everything at the same on the same machine. We are doing everything at the same place. So we will just use a local process. So std server transport, and that's all actually. And now all that we have to do is to connect it. So just with these 10 lines of code, we have a MCP server which is functional and that we can literally right away use in our host here, Cursor. So it's functional, but it does nothing. So it's not very interesting. So let's add a tool, right? So we are adding a tool. And for that, we will use the method register tool, which is provided by the server instance, and we will configure it by adding a name, by adding some metadata, such as a description. The description is really important. That's because it will help the LLM to know when to use the server, and also the input schema. So this is also important because this will provide the LLM the information of which input the server is expecting. And then we have the actual implementation, and that will be, in the end, probably the hardest part. But here we add something very simple. We just say hello. So here we are. We just need to import Z, and we should be good. The last thing that we have to do is to inform Cursor that we have this server which is available, but you are probably used to that. We have this server which is available and how to use it. So we just declare it in the configuration file, and that's pretty all. These are things that we are used to do, right? And then it should be working. Let's check. So if I go in my settings, we can see the server, and we can see that we have one tool which is enabled and which is probably working. Let's just test it. And actually, you will see there is something interesting happening in this video. I did that test several times, maybe 7, something like this. Each time when I was prompting that, I had cursor decided to use the MCP, except at that time, where he decided to do his own thing. Why not? I mean, this is not deterministic, right? So I kept this video because I found it interesting to highlight the fact that the description of the tool is really important, because each time we will have a demand for the LLM to use it. I mean, it's the better the description is, the more likely we are to be used. We are that the MCP will be used at the right use case. So yeah, that was just an example. I found it interesting, and then I do it again, and then that time it works. I'm helping him a bit with the MCP, and I just go a bit faster. Oops, sorry. Well, it had to happen once at least. Just showing the result. He's thinking, and then woohoo, he called it. So yeah. So that's it for the generic part, like the part on MCPs in general, and how to build it in our code ourselves. So now I would like to focus to something else, which is building an MCP server for Vue, or at least trying to build an MCP server for Vue. Which use case could we have for MCP for Vue? That's a good question, right? I personally see 2 use cases. I see, and by the way, if you're interested in that question, you can also have a look on the, as was mentioned, on the Angular and Svelte MCPs, which are also their own tools. In my case, in the case of Vue, I was mostly seeing 2 use cases. I was seeing the first one is about documentation, like providing a tool to look in the documentation directly. The second one is about DevTools, like providing a tool for the LLM to be able to interact with the Vue DevTools at the runtime. So let's start with the documentation. Why would we need to fetch the documentation? After all, we have LLM which are very performant. Why? Well, there could be two main reasons. The first one is that maybe we want to have fresh data which are fresher than the data on which the models are trained, right? And the other one is that we may want to provide a tool to get smarter content than what a client would normally do, like if he does the same search on internet. For example, in the case of Vue, we will fetch the information directly in the Algolia doc. And also, we could also consider reworking the information that we get back in the MCP in order to save tokens and to provide directly to the LLM an actual and relevant information. Spoiler. Oh, okay. Spoiler, to be honest, I did lots of tests, and I think it's not very useful on Vue. Because, to be honest, even on very recent features, LLMs are quite good, and they're aware of. They know how to look for them. So I was a bit mitigated on the utility on Vue, but I still wanted to show it. Why? Because I think that's something which can be used to any documentation, and especially that could be useful for, let's say, internal documentation, things like this, or maybe documentation which is less known than the Vue documentation, which evolves quickly, things like this. Like, for example, we could consider for your internal design system, having an MCP which provides some tools to look directly in this kind of documentation. So let's have a look quickly on how it works. That's really basic. We have exactly the same thing that we had done earlier. And we have here a tool which basically just goes and fetch in the Algolia documentation with the right parameters and so on, the query that the LLM would pass. And then there is a bit of rework on the output part. And that's all. So that's completely something which is applicable to any kind of documentation. Okay, are you still there? Because now we are going to the DevTool part. And that one is I have to say a bit technical, a bit more technical. I mean, we will not go into details, but yeah, hold on. We are almost done. So on the DevTool part, first, all the credits, I want to give some credits like to, no, it was not a great expression. All the credits goes to these two genius persons, these two geniuses, Anthony, that you probably know, right? And also Arlo, who is also a Vue core team member, Vite core team member, Vue use core team member, other thing core team member, like he's brilliant. And yeah, what I will show now is completely based on their work. So, DevTools. What can we do with LLMs and DevTools? Well, we can provide LLM to, we can provide a tool for LLM to inspect the runtime state of the application. Like, what is the state of a component in the browser? What is the state of a store? And we could also consider, like, maybe, why not, providing to the LLM the ability to mutate through the DevTool the runtime state, I will make it, in order to help it to debug some situations, things like this. Okay, I think there are many, many applications which are possible. Right now, we will just focus on two of them, on even one of them, which is inspecting the runtime state of a component. And for that, what do we need? First, we need, of course, the DevTools, right? We need to have the DevTools which are available in the client. And for that, we will use the DevToolkit, which is a kind of, that's really imprecise, but a kind of API for the DevTools. Then, of course, we don't want to inject it directly in our production code. So we would like to inject it in the application, only in dev mode, and ideally programmatically. So that's actually a very good use case for doing a Vite plugin. And then, second thing, what do we need else? We need an MCP server, of course, and a communication between the MCP server and the client. The client, sorry, maybe it's not so very clear. Here, by the client, I mean the client application, like the front-end application running in the browser, right? So we need a communication between these two, between the server and the application. Okay, how can we do that? We have something great which is available right out of the box, which is called the Vite WebSocket. So let's use that, and we can, why not, configure it directly in a Vite plugin. That's also a good application and use case for a Vite plugin. And then we need to instantiate somewhere the server, right? And since this is extremely related with the two other actions that we have to do, injecting in the client, in the application, the DevToolkit, and also joining, connecting to the Vite WebSocket, we will simply do the rest of the process, meaning instantiating the server also in the Vite plugin. So basically, that will be a Vite plugin which creates an MCP server and then which make it connected with the DevTool of the application. Just a little parenthesis. Here, since we have this Vite server which is available, we will use for the transport streamable HTTP and instead of local. Because it's available and also it's more global generic solution. Okay, so let's just summarize that quickly with the schema. I highlight it a bit because I think that's also a good use case, not only for MCP but also for a Vite plugin. So we have here our host, as usual, right? And then we have this Vite plugin, which will do most of the job, and in particular, instantiate the MCP server and also the transport and so on, as we have seen before. And these two will communicate through a streamable HTTP, through an endpoint that we will make available in the Vite development server. And on the other side, we have the browser with the application, and inside the application, we injected this DevToolkit. We injected it in the Vite plugin, by the Vite plugin, I would say. And then these two, like the MCP server and the application, will communicate through the Vite WebSocket. So that's the idea. Let's see now in action. Let's see what it does. So here is like a coffee application, like coffee, if we need to know. And so here I am just asking to get the state of the root component. And let's see what it does. Maybe I can make it a bit faster. Yeah, it's supposed to be okay. It's a bit long. I can't make it faster. Okay, good, great. So he found that he could use the Vue MCP, which has been installed in this application. And yeah, actually it's working. As we can see, it's working, and he could get back the state of the component. So I find it personally pretty cool. And yeah, I find it pretty cool. I hope I'm not the only one. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now let's arrive to the conclusion of all this. And for the conclusion, I would like to come back to the initial idea of the talk, which was this idea of replicating the development flow that we have, us as developers, to give the ability to agents to replicate it. And basically, this development flow, I mean, this is a simplified version of it, but let's say we write some code, then we visually test it, right? And then we might, if we think that we need it, try to test it internally, or maybe to have some look on internal states, things like this, through the DevTools. And then, according to what we see, what we discover, what we find out, we rewrite some code, and so on and so on. So the idea would be to tend to this flow, to let agents tend to this autonomous flow. So I tried to ask my LLM, my client, to do something a bit more complicated, which is to add a basket. Like, so the user can select some coffee and then can find the selection in a basket. So let me just show you how it could work. And also, I added the fact that I helped it a bit because so I write it down in the prompt, like, yeah, please test it visually and also test the state. I think we would need to configure it, potentially like through skills or through cursor rules, like to make it automatically, but whatever. I asked him to do the development, and then to test it visually through the Playwright MCP, and also to test the state through the Vue MCP. And I will go a bit faster because, oh no! 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 Oh no, it's not possible. What's happening? Okay. Okay, we're here. So here he has written the code. All the code part is done, and now he's testing with the Playwright MCP. So it is visually testing. That's what I asked in the prompt. So it is doing it by itself. So you probably used the Playwright MCP before, and then. Still testing, taking a snapshot, getting back the snapshot. The LLM can visualize the snapshot and say, okay, visually everything seems okay. Let's now try to test internally, like to test the state of the application. And then he found that he could use the Vue, he found that he could use the Vue MCP for that. And it is testing. Well, it's coming back a bit to Playwright, like it's not like completely seamless, but still, it is testing it, and yeah, I think he got it now. And now he concluded that, okay, visually the application looks as expected, and also in the state, it looks as expected as well. So yeah, so that was a little experiment, like to see how we could tend to this like autonomous agentic flow. Okay, let's conclude because I have 15 seconds left. Key takeaway. MCPs are not dead, first thing. Also, I really wanted to emphasize the fact that they are really, the SDK part is easy to implement. Of course, there is then the server implementation, but globally it's surprisingly easy, I would say. And also that I really believe that it can be useful, in our daily life. It can be useful like for handling custom use cases. If you're interested in this Vue MCP server, feel free to have a look on the repo. You can also install it. Feel free to give some feedbacks. I would be happy to have any feedback about it. For now, there are very little tools, very few tools, but I want to improve it and to keep on experimenting it. I wanted to give a big thanks to first to the Bellevue meetup, which is the Belgian meetup run by Cybran, who is not here today because he liked better going to the Dev World than to Vue Amsterdam, and because actually we had the Bellevue meetup at a company called Moniz, but they are here. And that was the first iteration of my talk, and they really gave me some great feedback, and it encourages me into continuing it. So I wanted to thank you. And I wanted to thank Julien as well. I don't know if he's there, because he helped me also for the talk. And that's all. I wanted to thank you for being here, for being part of the Vue community, and for listening to me as well. Thank you.